Most dogs are trained too much. This one wasn't. Most people believe training makes dogs better. More commands, more structure, more control. And on the surface, that feels obvious. A dog that sits on command looks disciplined. A dog that recalls instantly looks reliable. A dog that constantly checks in looks engaged. So when people see a dog that doesn't do those things, they assume something is missing. They assume he's undertrained, or stubborn, or poorly handled. But in some dogs, especially working dogs, too much training doesn't improve reliability. It destroys it. And the reason most people never notice is because the failure doesn't look dramatic. It looks like obedience. The dangerous assumption. Most training focuses on one thing: response speed. How fast does the dog react? How quickly does he comply? How immediately does he look to the handler? But speed is not judgment. A dog that responds instantly isn't necessarily making good decisions. He's making conditioned ones. And conditioning works great until the environment stops matching the training. Why overtraining feels safe but isn't. Humans like predictability. We like knowing exactly what will happen when we give a command. We like visible control. We like feedback. So we reward dogs that respond quickly, look to us for direction, act immediately. But here's the problem. Real environments don't wait for commands. Threats don't announce themselves. Mistakes don't pause. And there's often no human present to give instruction. That's where overtrained dogs fail quietly. The difference between obedience and judgment. An obedient dog asks one question: what do you want me to do? A reliable dog asks a different one: what needs to be done? Those are not the same thing. And the second question is much harder to teach because you can't teach it directly. You can only avoid breaking it. What happens when you train too much? When dogs are trained heavily around people, something subtle happens. They stop evaluating the environment. Instead, they start evaluating you. They wait. They hesitate. They look for cues. And that delay feels small until it matters. Overtrained dogs often pause before acting, look back when something changes, hesitate when the situation isn't familiar. That hesitation doesn't look like failure. It looks like obedience. But obedience doesn't save situations. Judgment does. Why this dog wasn't trained like that. This dog doesn't wait for permission, not because he's disobedient, not because he's stubborn, but because he was never taught to outsource decision-making. He wasn't conditioned to act after checking in. He was allowed to observe, to filter, to decide. That doesn't come from adding commands. It comes from restraint on the handler's part. The cost of removing autonomy. Every time a dog is corrected for choosing on his own, every time initiative is discouraged, every time curiosity is redirected into compliance, a small piece of judgment disappears, and you don't notice it immediately because the dog still performs. He still sits, still comes, still listens. But when the environment changes, when something unfamiliar happens, that missing judgment shows up. And by then, it's too late to retrain. Why perfectly trained dogs make the worst mistakes. The dogs that make the biggest mistakes are often the most controlled because they've learned: don't act unless told, don't decide independently, don't trust your own assessment. That works in controlled settings. It fails in real ones. A dog that has never been allowed to decide can't suddenly learn to do it under pressure. What restraint actually looks like. This dog doesn't perform constantly. He doesn't rush. He doesn't respond to every change. He doesn't need direction for routine decisions. To someone unfamiliar, that looks like undertraining. But what you're seeing is preserved judgment. He hasn't been trained out of awareness. The lie of more is better, more reps, more commands, more drills. It feels productive, but training isn't about stacking behaviors. It's about protecting decision-making capacity. Every command replaces a decision. Every correction narrows autonomy. Every forced response reduces flexibility. That's fine for pets. It's dangerous for working dogs. Why most dogs never recover from overtraining. You can add commands easily. You can't easily remove dependency. Once a dog learns to wait for instruction, undoing that habit is incredibly difficult because hesitation becomes the default, and hesitation is deadly in environments that don't wait. Why this dog looks boring. He doesn't perform. He doesn't seek validation. He doesn't look impressive. And that's the point. Reliable dogs are boring because excitement is uncertainty trying to resolve itself. Calm is already resolved. The quiet advantage. This dog doesn't need to be told what to do. He understands his role. He understands the environment. He understands when action matters. That didn't come from more training. It came from less interference. Why this makes people uncomfortable. Humans like control. We like feeling needed. We like being the decision maker. A dog that doesn't require constant direction feels threatening. Not because he's dangerous, but because he doesn't rely on us. That independence gets mislabeled as disobedience, but it's actually competence. The real question. People avoid the question isn't, is this dog trained? The question is, can this dog be trusted when no one is watching? Most dogs can't. This one can. The cost of getting this wrong. Dogs that lose judgment don't fail loudly. They fail quietly. They hesitate. They misread. They act too late. And people blame the dog, when the real issue was the training philosophy. The takeaway. Most people miss. Training isn't about control. It's about what you choose not to control. And the dogs that last, the dogs that stay reliable, are usually the ones that we're allowed to think.